Good evening and welcome to the First Layers Ask for Help. This is our Friday night or Saturday night. It's not Friday, it's Saturday. It's our Saturday night live stream right here on the First Layer. Welcome everybody. Let's first welcome 3D Printing and Painting. That's our good friend Jerry Knapp. Then we've got Rex Waldy, Trevor Rickert, Snapshot FPV. We've got Pure Life, David Sell, The Park 88, Ben Brady, Pierre and Gary T. Welcome everybody. Tonight is kind of a different night. Brian is not with me. Tonight we have a new guest who's going to guest host with me. We're going to answer your questions live like we do every Saturday night. And with me is this fine guy. His name is Luke Hatfeild, better known as One Bad Marine on the YouTubes and on the Facebooks and all over the place. Good evening. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here. Hopefully we can get some questions answered. We can get my YouTube channel name fixed because it's going to be L3D going forward now.
Oh, there you go.
I think it'll actually, yeah, so Luke 3D, and it'll be help and print guide or whatever. And my phone was on. Sorry, hold on.
Oh, we're getting some noise back there.
Yeah. I'm trying to shut off my phone.
While you're taking care of that, we got Sangeeta. Hello. We've got James Lane, Mark L. Baker, Ben Brady. I think I said hi to Ben Brady already. There's Gabriel Gonzalez, Art Eckstein, 3D, James Lane, Loch Ness Gaming, and Rob Waltz. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's show. We've got just a couple of questions that came in through email over the last couple of weeks. As you guys know, we did not have a show last week due to some family things that were going on, and I thank you everybody who sent along your condolences. Thank you very much for that. But let's get into everything that we've got going on tonight. First and foremost, I want people to know where they can find you most often, Luke, on the interwebs.
All right, so Luke Hatfield on any of almost 40 different Facebook groups related to 3D printing, primarily the Creality 3D brand, but also in others. Then for the YouTube, I am just rechanged my channel. Sorry for that. So it's L3D Help Guide is the actual tag that's going to go on past the youtube.com thing or whatever. So that's coming on board, and I'm rebranding and going to start developing some content more than some of the poor video that I had on the channel before.
There you go. All right, let's get into the first question. So the first question comes from Tom J, and it's regarding Cura. So let me just read the question here. He says, hello again. Once again, I am at my wit's end with this Aura download. You gave me a link to Cura, I'm assuming, and I went in and did the download. Once I got it and was installing it, it decided to stop, and it gave me a box on my screen that said it could not write files, and the only option in the box was to abort the download, and now I do not know what to do here. He says he's tried to download the Kodak 3.6.6, which is an old Aura, but when I get into the software, it will not let me make any changes, and therefore it has gone from my computer. I need a software program to help me, but I have no idea where to start looking for this. Any help at this time would be great, and if maybe you have a suggestion to help get Cura working, that would be great. First and foremost, what I would say to Tom is check and see how much hard drive space you have. Because if you're running out of space during the download, that's a clear indication to me that your hard drive either has bad sectors where it's not allowing you to write into those bad sectors, or your hard drive is just full. It might be time to clean off some stuff on your hard drive. What about you there, Luke?
Okay, my supposition, because I run into this a lot with people, is they didn't give Windows permission to allow the program to make changes to their computer. So make sure that you allow that program to make changes to your computer. That's the first off. And secondly, they won't have either a proper zip file to unzip the folder when they get it. Is another problem that's very common. So you need to have a good some sort of zip folder, whether it's 7-zip or WinZip or whatever your flavor of the day is.
There you go. I got to get you to move over into camera just a little bit there, Luke.
All right,
There
sorry.
you go. Now we can see you.
I'm still harvesting the Cr-10 Max's parts. I got 3 left to do, and then I can start it again.
There you go. Let's take a question here from Trevor Rickard. He says, hey guys, I have a problem I have noticed recently on my 3D printer. My PTFE tubing has been moving, and every time I take out the filament PLA, I get a big glob in the end of it. I don't think that's normal. And while yes and no, that isn't normal. If your PTFE tube is moving up and down inside the hot end, that's a good indicator that the little teeth that grab that tube are starting to go. You might want to replace that coupling to start off with. But Luke, you have a very unique way of taking care of that issue. Why don't you tell people about it?
All right, so it does start with good fittings, right? I often recommend the BQ brand fitting, so they have good metal teeth on them. But I offer on Thingiverse, it's called the Original Hot End Fix for Creality and others. And to do that, we are going to make a spacer and a cut guide so you can have a cut length of tubing stuck between the fitting and the nozzle so that it doesn't move and get that blob of filament inside the hot end you're dealing with. It also gives you better part finishes.
So people are saying they can barely hear me.
Okay. I thought you were asking me to be quiet. I was sort of
Nope.
figuring out what your hand signal was.
Let's find out where I'm at now.
Okay.
There, how's that, you guys? Is that better? I don't want to distort anybody's ears. That might be better. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. I just got to adjust the audio on my end because now it's a lot louder.
All right. So
Hey, I'm all better.
There we go. Is that sounding better? Okay, everybody's saying it's better now. Okay. So we got Riviera 82 Falcon. Hello. This is my first time watching this live. Well, welcome to our live stream. There's RT, a good friend of ours, Richard Taylor. John Kitchen. Yes, we fixed it. Snapshot FPV. In regards to the emailed question, was the problem a zip file that was simply opened, or was it a zip that was properly extracted? That's a good point. Chances are you probably didn't extract it properly. I never even thought about that when I initially read the view. It should be fairly simple, though. I think you can get an executable for Cura, a .exe download, which you just click and away you go.
Yeah, they do have older versions of Cura. If you go to ultimakercura.com, you can get older versions. Some people run into trouble with their video drivers can't handle the newer versions. So I think if you get back to I don't even remember what the iterations are called. I think they call it something 15 or whatever. The older class of ones have simpler audio drivers available. So if you don't have modern laptops or whatever that have the most up-to-date drivers, you can go back to the older versions of Cura.
We've got a question from Sangita. Hi, what would you recommend to use for an upgrade to extruder and hot end? Well, Sangita, we both have different views on the hot end, but I think we're pretty much on the same page. If you're using a Creality product, update to the all metal or aluminum, machined aluminum extruder. That seems to work the best. The plastic ones over time do break, and it's just nature of the beast. There's just too much pressure from the spring, and it causes it to snap at a very weak point on the idler wheel. As far as a hot end goes, I'm a big proponent of the Micro Swiss hot end for any of the Creality products. It's partially one of my favorite hot ends. I put it literally on all my machines. And then that's pretty much my view on it. Depending on the machine that you're using, do you really need a hot end upgrade? It's all going to depend, again, on what type of material you're printing in the long run. But Luke, tell us what you think about that.
All right. So, like everybody, I have the Creality printers that have the Bowden going through the fitting down into the hot end. I put my fix on there to take care of its biggest issue with the PTFE pulling back. So with doing that, I've yet to run into a need to go to all metal on most of my machines. I can print up to ABS, PETG, some nylons, and I don't have a problem with the temperature of the PTFE in those ranges in my shop for the off gassing. So I do that. I do have on my Cr-10 Max that's running right next to the laptop right now. You'll hear it starting up here in a second. It does have a Slice Engineering Mosquito Magnum on it. I'm setting up to do Peak and Ultim. That's a whole nother universe as far as this printing goes. I've got the hot end on there. I've got special materials for the fan duct and the tool holder so that they can handle the high temps, but I actually have to go to linear rails and 180 degree C steppers so that I can have a work enclosure that's at 90 degrees C operating temp. So that's really a lot going on there. So, but for your regular machines, the Micro Swiss is a direct bolt-on. It's a great all-metal replacement. If you want a metal throat and a stock hot end, you can get a titanium throat from either TH3D or just about any of the online sources that sell parts. So that way you can put an all-metal throat into your stock hot end. You don't got to go buy the whole new hot end. You've got an all-metal throat and the properties you're looking for in the Micro Swiss, and it costs it's like $12 for 2 titanium throats or something like that. And they pretty much last forever.
Yeah, I think Spool 3D here in Canada has them as well.
All right. Yeah, pitch for your people or whatever. I'm just doing off of what I know.
That's okay.
And then for the extruder, I've had several of the sort of the E3D Titan type extruders. They work okay. I personally prefer the Bondtech style extruder with that sort of 3-to-1 gear ratio. What it does is it causes your steps to have less visible pulsing as it's extruding the filament onto your part. And some people are like, how can you even know that? But if you get to a high level of finish, you will see the actual sort of surging happening as your stepper pulses happen with a sort of 1-to-1 ratio driver. If you have a 3-to-1, you're driving at 1/3 the amount, so that those are broken up into smaller increments, and it does make for nicer surface finish, and will help a little bit if you're getting the R, where you're getting that sort of resonance of the stepper frequency coming out in your part finish. It will make it less obvious.
There you go. Yeah, I've got a Bondtech on one of mine as well. I've also got a Titan on another printer here. The question, I guess, one person was asking here, I forget who it was, and the questions are going by quite fast, is first and foremost, what are you guys using? Do you recommend direct? I have some that are direct. I have a couple of printers that are direct. Most of my printers, other than my resin printers, of course, are Bowden. Do I like one over the other? I haven't really found an advantage or disadvantage to either. I can run flexibles through my Bowden system with the Bondtech on it. I can run flexibles through the system that's got the Titan on it through a Bowden system. And which is better? I can't really tell you because they both do the same thing for me. I guess it's a personal choice at the end of the day. What you like and what you don't like. A lot of people will go with direct drive, and I think you've got a few direct drives, do you not, Luke?
Yeah, so the only one I'm currently running on a direct drive is the Cr-10 V2. I've got their new direct drive kit for it, the Creality based kit, and it works good. I've had past printers that had direct drives, and I switched them to Bowden for the things that Bowden offer, right? You're not putting all that extra weight on the workhead, which can cause problems with ringing with belts, and your jerk and acceleration as you try and go faster and accelerate things. So I'll put it, there's two different schools of thought. Yes, it's easier for flexibles, but I can print flexibles on either. So if you're not out for speed, then direct drive's probably just fine, right? If you run at normal-ish speeds, like 60 millimeters a minute with a 30 millimeter outer shell or 50% underspeed, you'll be fine, with no problems. Now, if you're that guy that wants to be able to run it between 120 and 180 feet or millimeters per second on a deposition rate, and add the weight of a full-size stepper motor or even a pancake stepper onto your hot end, you're going to pay a price. It's either going to be in trying to tune with like linear advance to try and stop it from crashing into hard stops, or other things to accommodate for the fact that you have more mass on the hot end.
Yeah,
So
I
it
agree.
can go either way.
Yeah. Captain Laughlin's asking, what specs are your computer for slicing? In all honesty, you can get away with an i3 with 4 gigs of RAM to do any type of slicing. You can actually get away with a Pentium. I've sliced on a laptop that I have here using the latest version of Cura. Well, not 4.6 because I haven't downloaded it yet, but 4.5. And it's only got 4 gigs of RAM in it. So it does take a little longer, but it'll still chug away and it won't crash. So you don't need a lot of computing power to slice models. It's also going to depend on the complexity of the model, how many triangles are in that model to begin with. If there's a lot of triangles, it's going to take a little bit more time to calculate. And if there's more triangles, there's usually a higher chance of detail as well. So that's something to be aware of. But any modern computer should be just fine for slicing. What do you think there, Luke?
Yeah, so I'm not the Pentium master, but anything post about i5 should be able to handle it with a decent amount of RAM. I will tell you, if you're going to do like a moon lithophane, I've done a couple of those really big size. Even with an i7 chewing on it, it can take up to 30 minutes to slice that part because of the resolution of the detail on the surface. And so, yeah, you just have to temper it. If you're running into problems with crashing, you either got to go to simpler models or upgrade your printer.
Yeah, I agree. Upgrade the computer if
you're
having that problem. Any opinions on Cura 4.6 yet? I don't have any. To be perfectly honest with you, that's from Art Eckstein, because I haven't downloaded it yet. I probably will download it in the next couple of days and get a good look at it because I've got some more tutorials on Cura coming up very soon. Have you had a chance to look at it yet?
No, nobody's told me that there's anything spectacular going on there. The last couple of incrementals from Cura have just been sort of fixing stuff in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a big drive. And this is one of the things that we touched on when you and I talked the other day, and we'll catch up to others with it, right? So when it comes to slicing profiles, everybody thinks that we all are hiding these magic profiles from everybody and we only share them when it suits us, right? We're really not. I have a profile right now that I developed for Cura back when I started on Cura. I think it started at 2. I started that profile at, is it 2.8 or 3.1, somewhere back there. And that profile is the exact same one, other than me having to force migrate it up through the iterations of Cura's advancing. I have not changed it at all. It gets a lot of use by people. It's really simplified. I don't have a lot of the advanced features turned on because it's a get people printing profile, and I don't purport it as the ultimate profile, right? This is if you're having trouble, you can go get this profile and it works. But that being said, that profile has not changed substantially in 2.5 years.
As far as my setup goes, I'm only using what comes with Cura stock. I haven't changed anything in terms of the types of profiles they are. If I've got an Ender 3, I'm running the Ender 3. If I've got a CR10, I'm running the CR10. The only one that's not running a stock profile is the Lotmaxx SC-10 in the background, which I'm doing a round lithophane on right now, as a matter of fact. And I think that at the end of the day is running the CR20 profile with just a small tweak to the bed size, and that was about it. So there's no real magic in terms of the profiles that I'm running either. Again, somebody wants me to suggest something to them, I usually do that in my courses anyway. But for the most part, you shouldn't have to touch a stock profile for a stock machine. So if it's in the listing and you've actually got a profile in there, they're usually pretty good. There's not a whole lot that you have to do. So that's pretty much my short answer on that.
I get a lot of angst from people when I try and oversimplify it, because it is important to have a good profile. That being said, like you said, Cura has adopted what users' profiles are that are getting a lot of public traction. Like some of the stuff that they used for a little while there was, I called it the Creawful mod, but it was called Creawesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was rather self-serving. Created a lot of problems for me personally, because I do a lot of work with E-steps and flow rate calibration and stuff in my work. And what he did with that Creawesome mod for Cura, which happened around 3.8.
Yeah, I think it was about 3.8. Yeah, it was before 4.0 that it came out.
Yeah. So what happened there was you have this huge user group that is Creality printers. And yeah, I'm Creality myopic, but that's sort of the way it is in the space, right? So that being said, you have this huge group of Creality users. They're all struggling with that minor under extrusion that my fix is supposed to help. And his tuning of a particular profile made them print really well with the messed up under extruding machine, which was great for the struggling people. But the people that had finely tuned machines that I was working with, they put it on there and they're over extruding and having all kinds of problems, because he was messing with line width, extrusion multipliers, and other things in the background to make a poorly printing printer extrude enough, right? So that was the bane of my existence for a while there. Everybody's like, well, why doesn't my machine work good with the Creawesome stuff? And I'm like, well, it's a bunch of band-aids set up to compensate for some things that a well-tuned machine doesn't need, you know, and not to bad mouth them or whatever, but it made a lot of problems for me. There were people like, I'm struggling with this. I'm sorry, what are you using? Creawesome. Well, okay, let's go take the Creawesome out. Oh, it works great. You know, that was my day. Often most days, you know.
When that Creawesome mod came out, I was very much in the same boat as you. I had a lot of people asking me about it because we did a video on it. And for me, Brian said it worked great for him. Everything was going fantastic for him on all of his printers. For me, it didn't work worth a darn. And for what it was, I just felt that it was nothing but a pain in the backside to use. And I went back to using stock profile and everything was working just fine for me. Now, of course, they've incorporated some of that Creawesome mod into the current versions of the Creality profiles, just so everybody is aware of that. And they found a nice balance between the two. There I go hitting my mic. But they found a nice balance between the two, I think. And the profile that they have now for 90% of the Creality products works and works very well.
Yeah, that was the deal. Once they lost that overcompensation stuff out of the profiles that they brought forward, now they have really good default profiles. Because it used to be, at least with my printers, if I took a stock default Cura profile, it would print very poorly just on what they offered as, you know, if you just picked stock PLA coarse or medium or whatever, it would struggle to print well, you know. But now they have decent profiles. So.
Is there any way to upgrade a small print bed? This is coming from Riviera 82 Falcon to a bigger one. I have a Lulzbot Mini and love it, but a bigger print area would be better. Not without re-engineering some of the way that the Lulzbot uses the print bed. I think there's not very much room on either side for the Mini to get a bigger bed through there. You may have to upgrade the frame or stretch the frame in order to get a bigger bed on there. But I think that's pretty much the only way to do it. Is it worth it? That's a lot of hassle in my mind. I would just go and get a printer with a bigger bed if you can afford it.
Yeah. If you're spoiled or feel spoiled by the Lulzbot, you'll actually find that a Creality Ender 3 can pretty much do the same thing, and you can get those on a good day from overseas for $170. So.
There you go. Now there's a question about a titanium throat from Sean Gould. Is there any advantage to using a titanium throat over a steel one? I'm going to let you answer this because I don't use a titanium throat. I just use the normal ones that come with my printer upgrades.
Okay. So the only difference between the steel and the titanium, and this is where it gets geeky, right, is the coefficient of thermal transfer. I'm not even probably saying that right. They conduct heat differently. The titanium is going to take less heat through as efficiently, but it's also stronger when you get that narrowed out neck, so it's not as likely to break. So you can use either one. They shouldn't have a huge difference between the two. If you use the titanium throat with a titanium nozzle, expect to run your heat almost 25 degrees hotter than whatever you would with a PTFE lined normal hot end, because you're going to need that extra juice to get the heat moving through there like you need. But not a huge difference between the two, just conductivity and toughness. The stainless versus that, the titanium is probably going to be a factor of 2 stronger, so twice as strong.
Right. Ben Brady says, BL Touch question. The default logic for the Z end stop switch and the Z probe end stop is false. Should they be set to true with the BL Touch enabled? I believe they should be set to true with BL Touch enabled. I have BL Touches on a couple of my machines, and I believe they're all set to true.
And I don't program for those very often, but I know when I reset up printers that have the BL Touch that I have to reverse the in-stop trigger, otherwise they don't function properly. It just keeps going up and up and up.
There you go. Dominic Versetto, welcome to the show. The Big Tree SKR Mini E3 has a different menu structure on the Ender 3 screen. It makes setting the Z offset problematic. Any ideas? If you follow my video that I just put out on Wednesday on setting your Z offset, that's going to definitely help you. Make sure that when you do set a Z offset that you are storing that Z offset, because if you don't, you turn off the machine, it's just going to go back to what it was previous. So you need to store that Z offset in order for it to take. Doesn't matter on what board you're on, whether you're on a Creality board, a SKR board, you really need to make sure that that Z offset first started at 0, then find where your Z offset is.
And for those that they spook them on computer code for storing, if you hook up with the USB cable, store of all current values is M500. So put that in your little notebook or whatever. So anytime you change a value and you want to make it save to EEPROM M500, then M503 will give you a report to show you what's saved in EEPROM to confirm it. So those are 2 good ones to know.
There you go. Matthew Luttrell, hopefully I didn't butcher that name. Cura 4.5 has jerk settings. My printer has Marlin 2.0.XX, which has junction deviation. What goes on there? That's a little difficult to tell you because I don't use junction deviation. I haven't tested junction deviation. Brian is the guy who's played with all that, so it's a little out of my wheelhouse. Have you tackled any of that, Luke?
So I hang out in the shadows to learn with the TH3D internal chat thread or whatever, and I don't know that much about it. I know that it's basically controlling how the stepper impulses are controlled at the controller level, and the strengths that are used, and if they are not, if they're not in line with between the stepper chip that you have and the board, you're going to have all kinds of problems. That's what I know.
Knowledge Quest. Just bought my first 3D printer, a Copymaster 3D 300 with a magnetic heated bed from a British manufacturer. What tips do you have for the best bed adhesion? My tip is, well, first of all, get rid of the magnetic bed. That's my first tip. Go to a piece of glass and use some glue stick. For me, that's always worked. I find that when you put a metal plate, a magnetic metal plate on a bed that has a lot of movement and not movement when you're playing with it, but movement when it's heating up, because the way aluminum works is when it heats up, it doesn't always heat up the same way. It's always moving in different directions. So you may have a low spot in one corner one day and it may be in a completely different corner the other day, but that magnetic bed is going to follow all the contours of that bed. So my suggestion is either go to mirror or glass. Luke, how would you tackle that problem?
All right, so I'm just sort of looking around. So I've got about a 50-50 mix between glass and the flex plates. So I use both. I do not find very much drift once they're set up and leveled with the magnetic sheets. The only thing you got to be careful of is that you don't get any debris between the bed and the plate and the magnet, or that'll throw off your overall leveling, because that little burr or whatever will get embedded in the magnetic surface. If you don't have quality magnet, if you get up close to 90 degrees, some of them degauss and lose strength. So you'll have your part attached to the plate, but the plate will warp because the magnet's not strong enough to hold it down. So get a quality magnet. TH3D has one right now, the magnet that's rated up to 140 degrees. That would be the best one that I'm aware of in the market right now and whatnot. But either way, so I have the PEIs. I don't have a huge problem with them. I like the flex sheets. They're easy to pull off. If you want, I got a sheet of parts sitting here waiting to come up. I can show you how easy they pop off when you're done. But
well, that's actually really good, because we got a question that's going to lead into that, and it's specifically for you, Luke. It's from James Lane. He says, "What's your preference, smooth PEI print bed or powder coated textured PEI print bed?"
At least the current iterations of the texture. Heavy on the texture for me. I mean, for the texture of your average build tack, I wouldn't really care so much, but they tend to be a lot more than that. So I'm going to put this back over here. I'm grabbing the other hand here. Sorry if I made everybody dizzy. So this is the PEI flex plate. It's got all the parts on it. I'm going to try and do this without making too big of a mess or whatever. But I just flex it a couple of times and the parts just fall off. It's pretty easy to get the parts off of there.
So there you go. Dan Barrio wants to know, what is Luke's preferred all-metal hot end for enders, if he would recommend them at all?
So if you're going to put one on, it's a little bit more work, but I actually like the E3D original. Or if you're going to go that far, the original or the E3D Volcano, because they have the ability to melt a lot more plastic faster. Because that's usually the reason that I go E3D in the first place, is I want to up my volumetric ability of melting stuff.
There you go. Sean Morrissey is saying glass is rubbish. I'd have to disagree with you, Sean, but I'm not going to get into a fight on this. I've been using glass on all of my beds, and I usually replace all of my beds with glass tops. As a matter of fact, that's the one that's back over in the corner here behind me that's printing a lithophane right now, has absolutely no glue stick on it. I've been printing on that glass now for more than a month. Just clean it off with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. I've got enough squish on there. I'm not causing my extruder to skip, and it's working great. And Robert Marvin.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Luke,
the only thing I would tell you.
Keep going.
Don't do PETG directly to glass without adhesive. That's tip for glass tonight.
I agree. Don't do PETG on straight glass. You want to have an interference layer there. So there's a question here from James Lane, and it went by so fast. Not from James Lane. Oh, from Robert Marvin. Sorry. Luke, what's more fun, printing or fishing? What's more fun, printing or fishing?
So a lot of people don't like fishing. So I am a sponsored fisherman as well as what I do with 3D printing. So I definitely enjoy my fishing. I get enjoyment out of both. Part of what brought me into 3D printing was my fishing, wanting to be able to make my own planer boards to pull my gear away from my boat while I troll. So I can thank fishing for 3D printing coming into my life. But I've embraced it and gone a little further with it than I needed to. So yeah, I enjoy both.
Gotcha. Rev Limit 304 says, maybe you can help me with my issue. I have a Cr-10 S with a BL Touch, and my first layers are perfect, but after about 10 to 15 millimeters of printing, my nozzle starts to scratch the part. That tells me
That is,
Go ahead. I'll let you answer this one.
sorry. So that's to my experience. That's one of two things. Well, actually, there's three things, but we'll start with the basic two first. One, you're over extruding. So it'll put up with over extrusion for a period of time, but as you grow, you're building it up more and more, so you're getting more deflection out of the workhead, so it's actually crashing into the part when it leaves and comes back. So over extrusion is the number one answer. Secondary to that would be if your X gantry is not moving smoothly, sometimes it'll load up, it'll dip a little bit, and then it'll release, and it'll come up and down and cause problems as well with it. And then forget what the third one was, but go ahead, Richard.
I agree with you on both those both those counts, because that's exactly what I would have said. Usually it's because of over extrusion. That's usually the number one issue. So double check that you're not over extruding throughout the length of the print, and see how that solves your problem.
Yeah. Now, if you're just knocking over your supports, a lot of times that's unclean extrusion, and a lot of people don't understand clean extrusion. But basically, like if you run a stock, it's got a little bit of that drag going on, and it's not pure extrusion. It's got a little bit of defect, so you get a pressure buildup. So when you do the retraction, it comes back and it leaves little blurbs of extra material. That's a support killer, right? If you have clean flow, like we do with the hot end picks or whatever, then you'll have nice pure extrusion into those finer details of supports, because they're usually thinner and whatever, because you're waste material and you're not trying to use so much stuff. So you want clean, pure extrusion, however you get there.
There you go. Knowledge Quest, anyone have tips for a complete noob for 3D printing? Yes, we do. And they're all on this channel. Just go through the videos that are there, and you'll be an intermediate in no time. I think that'll be your best bet. There's a lot of great videos there on Cura. There's a lot of great videos on bed adhesion. Go check them out, and I think that's going to solve a lot of the questions that you may have moving forward. Let's tackle one of the questions here. We kind of talked about this earlier, and I kind of answered it in Wednesday's episode on Z offsets. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you go and check it out. It says, hi guys, I have a Cr-10 Pro, which is causing me problems. I know it has a warp, or rather a raised bump in the middle of the build plate, and avoiding this bump is not an issue. My problem is that after setting up the machine, making sure that all the rails are square to each other and square to the machine base, both Z-axis motors and lead screws are running straight and smooth. Changed out the capacitive sensor for an inductive sensor, which is insulated. It has a max working temp of 55 degrees. Installed anti-backlash lead screw nuts. I've set up the machine to within 0.03 millimeters of its life. That is the difference of the height of my x-axis. I use a micrometer rather than blocks. My problem is that after nearly every print, my z-axis height changes by 0.2 millimeters. Basically, I slice a test model in Cura, save it to the memory card, and print.
I got this one if you want.
Okay, I'm going to let you take this one.
Okay, so go to my help guide that's listed on Richard's page there.
Yep.
Do the X gantry rework. You're going to take off your extra Z lead screw while you do the process. You're going to have it follow every step that's in there. Part of what I do is actually aligning both carriages to each other and some other stuff you won't find in other guidance. Do all of those steps like you have a single drive screw, get it lined up. Then when you put your other screw on, everything will be in its proper orientation and no twists, no wheels trying to run out of the guides. The other part of this is for all of my dual Z lead screws machines, once I've done that, what I do is I'll run it up to 150 millimeters or 200 millimeters. I'll disable the steppers. I reach around and I grab the left lead screw And I just slowly turn it down about 1 or 2 turns until the right side starts falling with it. And then I stop. As long as you do that consistently, that's your neutral point. Now level your bed to that point that gantry's at, and anytime if it gets messed up or whatever, just run it up, disable the steppers, do that same thing. Your gantry will fall right back into line where it was, and should repeat after time.
There you go. If you guys are getting something out of tonight's live stream, go ahead, help us out with the super chat down at the bottom. We'd really appreciate that. And because all that goes into the coffers to helping out the channel and keeping us to produce products just like you're seeing today. Keep us doing the videos that we do twice a week, the live stream and our recorded videos. Thank you very much. I had to throw that little one in there. And if you're having problems, there's a question here about from Louis Eric Samard. He says, PLA is getting really hard to find. Amazon only has limited supply. Spool 3D also seems to have very lean stock. Do you have any insight on where the supply chain is breaking up? It is breaking up for many reasons. One is because of COVID-19. Two would be because they're using PLA for other things that are environmentally friendly, like straws now are being made from PLA. So they break down and, you know, they don't get caught in turtle noses and that sort of thing. And there's also other products now that are being mass produced because of the biodegradability of PLA. So that is where you're having a problem. If you're having a problem sourcing in Canada and you can't find it on Amazon, you can always go check out these guys, filaments.ca. We're doing some work with them as well. And I know that their stock is pretty lean right now as well. I was on their website yesterday. But it's a worldwide shortage. Sorry, there's no real answer to that. I don't think it's just China. However, most of the PLA is made in China at this time, and some is made in other parts of Europe, but for the most part, it's made in Asia. So yeah, it's, at the end of the day, it's not one group of people. There's many things contributing to the issue of a shortage of PLA. And with COVID-19, things are taking longer to get to the retailers as well when they're coming out of other countries. Luke?
Yeah, so there's only a couple of U.S. direct suppliers of material. My son's going to harvest some of the machines from in the background, sorry. But anyhow, I've been getting my stuff off of Amazon. I'm using more than normal because I'm supporting a hospital. Right now I'm making 10,000 of these ear saver things or whatever for them. So that's, you know, without any defects or whatever, that's 16 kilograms for 10,000 of those things. So I'm going through way more material on a daily basis than I normally would. So demand is up, availability is lower from the overseas. Just hunt around. There's multiple U.S. based suppliers that are actually extruding it here. One of them here in my hometown is I'm going to forget. The ones that did the thing with the 3D printing nerd with the coffee flavored stuff.
Oh, you're talking Protopasta.
Protopasta, yeah, they're like 3 miles from my door. I don't go over there all the time, whatever, but they're really close by. But yeah, it's a little scarce right now. I've heard rumors in the industry. There's some other similar plastics that might become emergent technologies for the lower end, easy to print 3D printing. I don't know exactly what that looks like. Personally, I wouldn't mind if we got a little higher demand on the PETG. I work with it a lot. The only thing that it needs to become less expensive is more people to buy it. So if people start getting away from the PLA and move to PETG, the PETG prices will come down and more people will get to find out the benefits of it like I have.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Ashley Rose says, so sorry, I joined late. What's the best lube for Z-axis screw on my Ender 3? Thanks, Ash from the UK. Ash, I would say that lithium grease is probably your best bet. Some guys use it all the time. I use it all the time to clean or to re-lube my rods. And you've got a 3-in-1 oil there.
I use PTFE liquid.
There you go. It
does not gum and cake. Even if you use lithium grease, collect dust and cake, and it can actually affect your Z by hardening and getting in your threads and your T-nut. That stuff will not ever harden. So I either use that or silicone lubricant because I don't want any caking on my drive screws.
There you go. I use lithium grease. I always clean my machines at about 1,500 hours. So I really don't ever have that caking problem. But, you know, we're at that time of year where the wind is blowing and you're going to see a lot of new dust bunnies in your house, which you didn't see over the winter. So I think the 3-in-1 might be a better way to go. And I think I'm going to try that here when I do the next maintenance on my machines.
Yeah, make sure you get it at Lowe's. Like at Lowe's, it's like $3.40 or something like that. If you buy it on Amazon, it's like $7 or $8 for the same containers.
Yeah,
unless you're just stuck where you can't get to a store, try and get it in person.
James Lane is saying, Pet G, holy stringing Batman. Pet G will string, and it's common for Pet G to string. Where you can reduce that stringing is by making sure that the filament is dry, for one, so it has to be incredibly dry. Secondly, you can play with your retractions and your heat settings and your speed, and that's certainly going to reduce your stringing for you. What do you say about that, Luke?
Yeah, so I've done like over 20 kilograms of Pet G. The thing that I run into the most in the community that people are unaware of is they get it sealed in a bag with desiccant and they're like, oh, it's dry. I'm sorry, but it's not necessarily dry if it comes that way. It stopped it from picking up any moisture on the way over. But if it was produced in any place that has moisture in its environment when it was manufactured, and it's cooled in water, right? They extrude it, they run it for a little while, it goes through the water, it comes back out. If it pulls any moisture in there, it stays in there because they cut it, seal it in a day, and that moisture is trapped. So you can get brand new Pet G fresh out of the package, and it could need to go into a dehydrator or some other force drying system to get dry.
Right.
And putting it in a box with desiccant, all that does is keeping it from getting more. It's no different than the vacuum bag.
Yeah, because it equalizes out.
Right, you physically have to get it above, somewhere above 60 degrees C is sort of my threshold that I look for to actually draw the moisture out of the filament. Though I think CNC Kitchen did a thing the other day on pulling a vacuum and doing some other neat stuff to get it out. But barring that,
I just watched that video today, actually.
Dehydrator, yeah. So put it in a dehydrator for Pet G. 4 to 8 hours is usually my starting point with it. If it gives me problems, it'll get another 4 to 8 hours again.
Gotcha.
It's not going to dry out on you. So.
Yeah, I think your best bet, just like when it comes to nylon filament, you definitely want to pre-dry it before you use it. So there is a question here from Ben Brady. Richard, is there any difference when painting PETG as opposed to PLA models? Yes, there is. It's all dependent on the paint that you're using. With PETG, it's a really good idea to rough up the surface. Just hit the surface with some sandpaper, hit it with a good quality primer or a paint adhesion promoter, and then you can go ahead and paint it with whatever you want. I find that over time with Pet G models, if you're going straight with acrylics on top of it, it will bead up and you won't get good coverage. So it's all about prepping the surface.
Yeah. So I don't paint my Pet G, but one thing people need to know about Pet G is it's very toolable. So as much as it might load up sandpaper, if you take a file or a knife to it for deburring or whatever, you can take one of those turbo torch lighters and just do a quick glance across it, and it'll re-sheen up just like you printed it. Mm-hmm. And you can make it look really nice after tooling it, which you can do that a little bit with PLA. Pet G is actually better. You can get better results with tooling and rework post printing. In my experience, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. So Louis Eric Samard is asking, any experience with ASA as a PLA replacement? I have not. I have, I think, a box of ASA here that I have not used yet. I will be trying that at some point in time. Now, for those of you guys that are out there going, oh, they're talking about other channels. We talk about other channels all the time, and if somebody's got great great information. We don't mind giving them a little plug because we don't have all the answers. As much as, you know, people would like to think that we do, and I research things just like everybody else does, and I try them out before I present my findings to you guys. Luke, you do the same thing. CNC Kitchen, what is that young gentleman's name? I keep forgetting. Stefan, yes. Stefan has an engineering background, so he takes things from a little different perspective than, you know, us laymen's do. I don't have an engineering background. I have an entertainment background. I can build things from wood, so I have a carpentry background, but I have no background in engineering. So, yeah, double check. Go and check that video on drying your filaments. I think that's going to be a really good idea for you. Mark Thibodeau is hello. Would you recommend putting a second lead screw on an Ender 3 Pro? Personally, I say no.
All right, so I'm going to give him homework.
Okay.
So I work with a guy named Frank. He has a company called printermods.com. So go to printermods.com, look at his video about not needing to add a second Z-axis with adding his stepper on board direct drive system. He just uses my X-Gantry rework protocol, and we checked it with, you know, a digital caliper, dial indicator repeatedly, and as long as it's done right, there's no deflection in Z height from using a direct drive system if it's properly calibrated and aligned.
James Lane, Richard, what kind of primer, etching primer, filler primer, or other? If you're using an adhesion promoter, it doesn't matter what primer you use. I use filler primer on my first rounds of doing a model when I'm painting them, just to help reduce those layer lines. But before I go and actually apply real paint to it, I will hit it with a regular primer afterwards. So hopefully that answers your question. Printing with ASA, I get bad results on very sharp corners and Z seams. The sharp corners warp and occasionally blobby. That's from Matthew Luttrell. Again, I haven't printed with ASA, so I really can't comment on that.
I tried it one time just because I was given some. A friend of mine a friend knew I was into printing, basically gave me some materials that he found, right? It was all sealed up or whatever, but I tried some ASA. It's very soft. It's like, it's really hard to describe, but it's soft and brittle. Not brittle like PLA cracks when it's put under stress. Mm-hmm. It deforms, and it's not strong. It doesn't have strength like PETG does. Sort of soft like PETG, but not strong like PETG, if that makes sense. I personally didn't care to work with it. I think you got to print it at pretty low temperatures, and even then, it's just, it might look good for something you're just going to see, but if it's going to get any impact or loads or anything like that, I don't see it as a very viable material.
Moving on here, because this hour went fast. We've only got a few more minutes left, so let's get a couple more questions in here if we can. David Houghton's asking, he just got an FL Sun Q5. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. He's having a real tough time getting his prints off the bed. Any tips to remove the prints, please? I would first of all wait for the bed to fully cool down, and you might be pushing a little bit too much material down into the bed. So double check that you're not too close to the bed with your nozzle. How about you?
Similar thing. I'm going to give him a sort of target. So my goal for my first layer is to be between 0.26 and 0.28 millimeters. Generally, if I'm hitting that, if you take the skirt off and measure it, you're going to be about the right amount of squish, because that's a really hard thing for us to quantify, to teach you. You can measure that if you got a set of calipers. So shoot for that 0.26 to 0.828 thickness on your first layer. That'll get your squishing amount into the Built-X type material about right. And then if it's still being difficult to come off, it's not the least expensive way to do it, but you can take the canned air, if you invert it a little bit of liquid nitrogen will come out, and you can get a thermal shock on it that can sometimes help break loose a part that just doesn't want to let go.
There you go. We've got one more question here. Hi, guys. This is from Debbie P. She says, I'm very new to 3D printing and only started in order to make cookie cutters. Aside from PLA, are there any other filaments suitable that are food safe, that don't emit bad fumes? My first response to you would be that no plastic is truly food safe. Once you put that plastic through your extruder and your hot end, it now is contaminated with whatever was in your hot end prior to that. If you're going through a brass nozzle, that's another thing that is going to be an issue for you. However, that being said, I have made cookie cutters for my wife out of both PETG and PLA, and they seem to work just fine. The PETG ones hold up a little bit better to washing in the sink. You can get in there and just leave them in the sink and then clean out any of the small pores that might be left behind from the printing process, whereas PLA in a hot sink, it's just going to deform because it has such a low melting temperature. So PETG would be my recommendation to you, but remember, even if it says food safe on the box, chances are that by the time you put it through your hot end, it is no longer food safe. How do you feel about that,
Yeah,
Luke?
so the food safe part of that is basically if you get bits of it that break free and ingest it, it won't kill you, right? That's the food safe part. The technology we're using where we have multiple layers, we have what we call layer lines. Those are little micro bees in the surface of finish of it. Those are where the food collect and can create bacteria that's harmful for you. Like he said, PETG handles going through the basic hand washing cycle, all right? If you really want to not have those layers anymore, it's more involved. And like you talked about, ABS stinks. But if you do them in ABS and learn how to do it well, you can use acetone to vapor smooth them. That will actually fully melt the surface and make it so there's no voids there. Now you're looking at something that's at least almost dishwasher safe and doesn't have the void problem where you're going to have germs built up in those microvoids. That's the only thing I can tell you that's even close, in my opinion, to being food safe.
And there you have it. So we both agree on that, PETG or ABS after vapor smoothing. And I think, you know, that's your best bet for making something that's long-term. If you want to go ahead and sell these on your Etsy store, PETG or, again, vapor smoothed ABS would be your best bet. And, I get a lot of questions about how can I sell my prints, that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, if you're making the design, go ahead, freely sell them. If it's somebody else's design that you've downloaded from Thingiverse, my recommendation is always that you go ahead and contact the original designer of the file and ask him if it's okay, him or her, if it's okay that you sell the 3D printed product, not the STL, on your Etsy store. With that said, we are 3 minutes out from calling it a day. Just before we go, Luke, I wanted you to tell people where they can find you again.
All right, one more time. So Luke Hatfeild on Facebook. Look for L3D logo is my new icon or whatever. It's got the hot end fix sort of as part of my logo artwork, sort of subtly hidden inside of there. You can catch me as L3D Help Guide on YouTube, and I don't really do much of the other platforms because I just don't have time for them.
There you go. You can find Luke's 3D printing guide for your Creality printer up in our YouTube, or not on our YouTube, pardon me, but on our Facebook group. There is a link to it there. There is also a link to it at the top of our website, thefirstlayer.com. Where can you find us each and every week? Let me see if I can find that. There we go. That's the one that we want. Let's swipe over that one. You can find us over on Facebook under the groups at the First Layer. You can find me on Instagram, thefirstlayer.com or the First Layer. You can find me on Twitter at Cleveland_IM. And of course, as always, every Wednesday and Saturday night, you can find us here on YouTube at the First Layer. And we do appreciate you guys for showing up tonight. Thank you for all of you guys that shared our content this evening. I want to thank Luke for taking the time to come out. I know he was supposed to be on with us last week. We canceled last week at the last minute due to a death in our family, and I thank you all for your condolences on that as well. We're still going through some things here, but we're going to try and keep content flowing as best we can. Again, everybody, thank you for showing up tonight. Like, share, comment, leave your comments down below. Let me know this week what you think of resin. I want to know in the comments down below what your opinion on resin is, because coming out on Wednesday is our our review of the Creality LD002R. I hope I got that right. We're going to be doing that on Wednesday's show. So if you're interested in seeing the review on that printer, it is a resin printer, which I'm pretty excited about. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday with that. Remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Next week, we've got another special guest, and Brian's going to be back with us as well. And I'll let you guys know who that guest is a little bit later in the week. Until then, my friends, thank you very much, and we will see you next time. And we're out.